All right, thanks for tuning in again for Cleveland Brown football talk on the OFN meeting room. I'm Greg DePalma, and that's right, we're going to talk about the Cleveland Browns and their NFL draft. We're going to do that with senior analyst at Pro Football Focus, PFF.com, John Costco. John, good to have you back again.
My pleasure, Greg.
All right, so the Browns, how did you think, and the fans about the draft?
Well, I think the Browns fans liked it. They wanted a tackle. They got a tackle at 10. They wanted Grant Delpit, and they got Grant Delpit. And I think after that, everything is cherry on top for them.
Yeah.
From a PFF perspective, they were one of the few teams that got an A+ draft grade from us, and also from based on our big board and how the value that they got from the big board, was the second best team in that, just behind the Dallas Cowboys. So overall, you can't really complain about what they did in this draft when their first 3 picks were top 25 players on our PFF big board. So
Absolutely.
Overall, it was just a big win for the Browns that weekend, and able to get some really good players on day 3 of the draft as well.
Yeah, basically, you did get 2 first-round talents in the draft, and especially 44. It's a good spot to get a player as talented as Delpit. Let's start with Willis, though, from Alabama. And actually, both players, of course, SEC players, both second-team All-Americans. But Willis, he is, of course, one of the top tackles in the draft. Depending on who you spoke to in the draft, as far as scouts or general managers, coaches, you could have got a mixture of who is 1 through 4 as far as the top tackles of the draft. So I'm not sure who the Browns would have taken if they had the first choice of tackles. Maybe you would know. But where do you think they graded Willis? Do you think they graded him where they took him in the order, or do you think they graded him higher?
I think he was their number 1 tackle on a big board for them, because as soon as the team ahead of them put their card in, their pick was in instantly. So for Jedrick Wills, and so that makes me think that Wills was their guy all along, and they were, in their eyes, fortunate for him to fall to him. From our perspective, from the PFF perspective, he was the number 2 tackle on the big board behind Andrew Thomas. So in terms of how it fell like that, it fell like what we thought on our board. I personally like Jedrick Wills better than Andrew Thomas, but because I think he's more polished in his technique, and he's a better athlete. And you look at his grades are excellent. He had an 88.7 this past year. Pass protection was fantastic at an 82.5. Where he shined was his run blocking. He's a mauler in the run game with an elite grade of 90+. So he's a guy that, I think, obviously he's flipping from the right tackle spot to the left tackle spot. So there's going to be some growing pains there, but he's got no better offensive line coach than Bill Callahan to coach him up and to help him with that transition. And he's going to be right next to a Pro Bowl, an All-Pro guard in Joel Bitonio. So I think that's a good pick. You look at more than just the grade-wise or just what he shows in film. One of the things you can look at is how he performed at the combine, and not just like the workout numbers, because obviously if you just to take a look at the workout numbers, the best player or offensive tackle just based on workout numbers was Tristan Wirfs, who had one of the best combines of all time from an offensive tackle position. But you look at what he was able to do in the drills that they have where there's not measurements for. And in my opinion, he had one of the best I've ever seen from an offensive tackle. He was incredibly fluid. He moved around. He was competitive out there. And he just the way he moved was really impressive. So I think they got a good pick here, and he can develop into a really good tackle, left tackle for the Browns for 10 years.
Yeah, a very productive offseason. You got your veteran right tackle, and now you have, like you said, hopefully your left tackle for many years to come. Delpit lasted to pick 44, and even after the Browns traded back a few spots, still able to land Delpit and pick up a 5th-round pick, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, Nick Harris. But yeah, Delpit, I remember at some point during the early part of last college football season, there was a lot of talk that Delpit was going to be like a top 15 draft pick, maybe even a top 10 draft pick. That's how talented he was. Now, I know he had the ankle injury. There was a lot of talk about how that might have affected his tackling. So, whatever the case may be, the kid is just ultra competitive, and just talking about somebody at that position as well. You want somebody that can cover. You want somebody that can lay the lumber. Uh, he can do it all, and I love picking up players like that. Whether it's a player that had a excellent 2018, and then 2019 not so good, and then you kind of look and you realize, well, he didn't have the talent around him, or this, that, or the other thing. And I think Delpit's in that kind of same category. If he would have came out in 2018, maybe he would have been a top 10 pick, top 15 pick.
Yeah, a part of it too is in this final season in 2019, he hurt his ankle and was really hampered by that injury. You take away the games that he hurt his ankle. He hurt it in the Auburn game, so he was down. He missed the next game and was still not 100% for the Alabama or the Ole Miss games. And those games were his two worst games of the year. You take away those 2 years games, and his whole season looks a lot better to him. He didn't miss nearly as many tackles as what is on the books. He did miss tackles, and I think that's like the one weakness in terms of his game is that he doesn't finish tackles as well as other players do. But he's also missing tackles that players would hope to have an opportunity to miss tackles on. There are a lot of plays where he's making a missed tackle at the line of scrimmage from after driving down from 15 yards deep at the deep free safety position, where a guy like an Anton Winfield or just your average safety prospect isn't going to be in that position to make that missed tackle. They're maybe making that tackle at 5 yards down the field. So if you look at his size is fantastic. 6'3", 200 plus pounds. He's got the speed. He's got the range. He's got everything you want in a safety prospect. He can cover the slot. He can cover deep. He does everything you look for. You want him to be able to clean up those missed tackles, but he can make plays that other players cannot make because he is so instinctive and so quick. And he's violent at the point of attack in a run game as well. And he can also blitz. He can do it all. So he's a guy that, yeah, you're right. If he would have come out a year prior, he's probably easily a top 20 pick. Based on how well he played. And then his junior year when he got hurt, it didn't look as good. And he was obviously under more of a microscope in that regard as well. But I think he's going to be back to that Thorpe Award winning type form. And he's going to be a really good player for the Browns in the secondary.
Yeah, I mean, you take a look at Cleveland's secondary now with Greedy Williams and Denzel Ward, and now Grant Delpit. That's a great way to build up the secondary. Those three guys right there. So, a lot to be excited about. Let's talk about the 2 third-round picks now, starting with Jordan Elliott from Missouri. Another situation where the Browns traded back 14 spots and picked up a third-round pick in 2021 and went ahead and went with Elliott. So talk about Elliott, who's a penetrator. What is when you take a look at the specific player, what is it that the Browns like about him and how they want him to fit in with their defense?
Yeah, so he's going to be a 3-tech for the Browns. Like he said, he's a penetrator. He was our number 1 graded interior defensive line player in the entire 2019 season. Elite grades in both pass rushing and run defense. He had a run defense grade of 92.2, a pass rushing grade of 91.4. Excellent numbers. Nobody can touch those numbers. Not even the guys that were drafted in the first round in a Derek Brown or Javon Kinlaw. So he was our in a big board in terms of what we had for the defensive interior guys. He was our number 3 guy there. And we had him as our number 23 overall prospect in this draft. So the fact that they were able to get him after a trade back in the 3rd round at number 88 is phenomenal. So maybe he's going to need some fine tuning with his technique and getting up to speed in terms of the NFL game. But for that type of quality of a player in the 3rd round is phenomenal. And then you look at Jacob Phillips. Obviously, he played in front of Grant Delpit at LSU. He's a guy that we weren't so high on. We had him as a fourth round grade, so this was the first pick that we thought that the Browns made, where it could have been a little bit of a reach, but he's got the speed and the athleticism from that standpoint, but the change of direction ability isn't quite there, which is going to probably show up in coverage. But he's a guy that you can trust in the run game. He does not miss tackles. He had the fewest missed tackles in the entire college football season last year. So he is sure in that regard. And as Browns fans know, a big problem for the Browns defenses in the past decade is just missing tackles. And so he's not going to be a guy that's going to miss tackles for you. So he's going to be sure at the run point of attack in the run game. And if he is attacked, targeted in coverage, he's going to be able to make those plays as well. So he's not obviously a clean prospect by any means, but
sure.
Is the sure tackler, and I think Browns fans are going to like that.
And that's going to help him also on special teams because he's an outstanding special teams performer. So I'm sure his speed at that position and his tackling ability is going to be a premium for their coverage units. And not bad to pick up the leading tackler for the national championship team. Not bad at all. Jacob Phillips going with the second of 2 third-round picks. Now we take a look at the 4th-round pick, which is the tight end Harrison Bryant, the Mackey Award winner for tight ends, the only tight end who had over 1,000 yards receiving last year in the entire nation. And what you like about Bryant is you got a smart kid, good hands, and really tough as nails. I mean, this kid, when he blocks, he's going to give his effort. Blocking is always going to be the trait that the college kids are going to be a step behind going to the pros, but he's got a nasty demeanor, and that will help you when you are trying to learn the techniques of blocking. But that's a good start. So I like the combination of all those factors at the tight end position for the Browns. And just they got a good tight end already, but and Joku's had an injury here or there, and Bryant is a kid that is going to be a very valuable partner.
Yeah, he's a guy that I think he comes into a perfect situation for himself in terms of being able to develop one of the hardest positions in the NFL, not the hardest to learn outside maybe quarterback when you come in, is tight end. And because there's so much more that's asked of you at that position in the NFL than it is in college. You have to learn all the pass protections. You have to learn all the run schemes and what your assignments are in that. And then you also have to know all the routes that you have to run. And with him, he's got that versatility. He's going to be able to line up anywhere on the field because that's what they asked him to do at FAU. He can play X, he can play Y, he can play the Z, he can play in line, in the backfield, whatever you want him to do, he's going to be able to do it. And he's now going to be behind Njoku and Austin Hooper to learn that and only grow into that position rather than being forced to start day one and try to pick up that, get to that NFL speed right away. No, tight ends in the NFL do not succeed day one. They just don't unless your name is Rob Gronkowski or Mike Ditka. Everybody else essentially struggles year one. So he's going to have that. He's going to be in that perfect role for himself, the third tight end, that he can ease into it. And what he was able to do at FAU, obviously he had elite grades in terms of receiving 3 straight years, which is obviously a fantastic thing to see for Browns fans. And then where you're talking about with the run game and his ability to run block, it improved every single year. Last season, it was an 84.5. Previous season, it was a 76. So you see that improvement and how he is, getting better in the run game, which, obviously in a Kevin Stefanski-led offense, you're going to be doing a lot of wide zone runs and just a lot of run blocking in general. So he's going to be, that's obviously a good thing for the Browns, and he just needs to continue to improve like he's shown so far in his college career.
Yeah, and Hooper, see, and Njoku and Bryant, I think, are a couple of guys that I think can give the Browns a little bit more of a dangerous weapon at that spot. Hooper, I think what we saw last year. We'll talk more about him when we get to training camp and so forth. But I think he's kind of reached his pinnacle. I don't look at Hooper is not one of these tight ends that I think opposing defenses game plan for. He's a solid player. And at that position, if you got yourself a solid tight end, you then put yourself where schematically where you could feel, hey, you know what? There's only about 5 or 6 elite level tight ends in the game, if that. So if you got a really reliable tight end like Austin Hooper, then you take in a guy like Njoku and you could develop Harrison Bryant. You've got something really special. So I think, I mean, you just move those chess pieces around with the receivers and the running backs. That's going to be pretty exciting for Cleveland fans.
Yeah, absolutely. So with as you know, my kids just came home, and have to excuse that in the background a little bit, but
That's hey,
it's the times, right?
that's
So
right.
but yeah, so like with Hooper, you're right about that. He's not a guy that's going to be crushing single coverages like a Rob Gronkowski or a Travis Kelsey or a George Kittle. That's just not his game. He is a guy that's going to be able to exploit zones and be able to have it schemed up where he beats it underneath and takes it for a first down in that regard. So he's really good in that regard. He's not a guy that teams aren't going to game plan for him to specifically stop him, which is perfect for this offense. They don't really need to do that in this offense because of how it's utilized. You're going to have a lot of that play action boot stuff where he's going to fake block and then get schemed open, just like we see with Kyle Shanahan's offense. You look at what Kyle Shanahan was able to do just throughout his entire career, where he schemes up tight ends and wide open down the field. We saw it with Jordan Cameron, where Browns fans thought that he was an elite tight end prospect or guy because he was always open. But that's more so the system, and so Kevin Stefanski's system is the same way in that regard. And so with him there, he's going to be able to do that.
And by the way, like you were talking about with Stefanski, I think we even talked about this in the preview. I think the number was 26% of the time Stefanski's tight end, his number 3 tight end, was used in the offense. That's a lot for a number 3 tight end. So they needed to have an upgrade with that number 3 tight end, and they've just done that.
Yeah, for sure. And part of you don't know what Stefanski is going to be like as a head coach versus when he was an offensive coordinator. Like probably the same type of system. Is he going to utilize the same numbers that he did when he was in Minnesota? I don't think so. I think part of that is they had to play 3 tight ends a lot because of out of necessity. You look at what they had from their receiving standpoint. They had Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen, who are their number 2,
Sure.
top 2 receivers. But Thielen was injured half the year. So then you're just kind of left with only Stephon Diggs, and your second receiver then is either like Treadwell or Olabisi Johnson or BB. It's like those guys aren't number 2 receivers in the NFL, so you're going to limit the number of reps that those guys are going to get at that number 2 receiver when Adam Thielen's out. So there is that in play with that, but you're right. Like that's the type of offense you're going to see with the Browns. They majorly upgraded that 3rd tight end position with Harrison Bryant, and even the guys that they have behind him are pretty solid. Solid number 3 tight ends as well. But with Harrison Bryant, it's a big upgrade in my opinion.
And then the last 2 picks were Nick Harris and Donovan Peoples-Jones. And Harris, the center from Washington, was the player we mentioned before that was acquired from the Colts when they moved back three spots in round 2. So Harris gives them some depth on the offensive line and somebody with a lot of experience at a pretty good level there and a good football program at Washington. Peoples-Jones, who was acquired from the Jamar Taylor trade last year, that pick. And I'm a Michigan fan, so I know what Peoples-Jones is about. I mean, he was a 5-star prospect coming to Michigan. There were so many expectations. Just a couple of years ago, I thought it was a lock that he was going to be a first-round draft pick. That's how much talent this kid had. Now, I know the quarterback play wasn't as good as it could have been. I know they changed up the offensive scheme several times as well. But it just seemed like a combination of injuries and I don't know. Was it effort? I don't know. But the kid has the tools to be a first-round draft pick.
Yeah, so we'll talk about Nick Harris. Obviously, he was basically a 3-year full-time starter. He had started half the games in his freshman season at center for Washington Huskies, and obviously a big-time program, like you had said. In the past 2 years, he was the number 1 pass protecting center in college football. And when it came to true pass set, so a true pass set is you're not being there's not a screen, there's not an RPO game that's along with that. There's a certain time frame. He does not get that extra help from the play action game. So
Okay.
true pass set is like it's your standard drop back pass, which you see a lot of in the NFL. Kevin Stefanski's offense is one of the types of offenses that utilize the true passes least frequently, but you still have to do it several hundred times a year. He only gave up one pressure in true pass sets the past 2 years. So and then you look at him as also from just a scheme fit standpoint, he was the number 4 run blocking wide zone center in college football the past 2 years. So he has all the necessary metrics in that regard. Obviously, he's a bit undersized. That's one of the reasons why he dropped to the 5th round like he did. But from a fit, it's a perfect fit for the Kevin Stefanski offense. Now with Donovan Peoples-Jones, you're right. Like Urban Meyer thought he was going to be able to recruit this kid, and he was going to be an Ohio State Buckeye. And so I know a lot of Browns fans are Buckeyes fans, and a lot of people have mentioned that. But so like Urban, it was good enough for Urban Meyer, and Urban Meyer's obviously developed and grew a lot of NFL talent down in Columbus. So he was definitely hampered by the fact that he did not have very good quarterback play or consistent quarterback play and consistent playbooks. From an offensive scheme standpoint, you look at what he was able to do 2 years prior in 2018. His grades were pretty good. They looked like they were on trajectory to be the type where if he just grew from his second season to his third season, he would be in talks of being a top 2 draft pick. But he obviously took a step back this year. Part of that is he was in an ankle boot for the first 4 weeks of the season. I think he missed the first either 3 or 4 games, and he also had not just only an ankle injury, but I think a groin injury as well. So he was never at full speed last year. And then when he was getting targets, a lot of them were just inaccurate. So he's able. Obviously, he has all world athleticism. Now he just needs to fine tune that and he's going to be on a obviously an NFL coaching staff that's going to be able to develop him properly, and he's going to be able to do it behind guys like Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry.
Yep.
So he gets a necessary time to sit, learn the NFL system, develop like he's supposed to, and with that athleticism, I think the ceiling is sky high for the guy. Obviously, there's a reason he didn't produce like you'd want him to, but at the same time, it's he was hurt by the system that he was in.
Sure. And that's why he was available in the 6th round. So,
exactly.
Look, I don't think he's a 6th round guy. No matter, we can throw all the injuries and the bad quarterback play. He should never have lasted to the 6th round. I would have probably seen maybe 4th round, something like that, I think, as a talent. So this is a bargain pick. We'll see how it works. But maybe you think even in the beginning, punt return game. I know JoJo Natson was signed, but Peoples-Jones is a really good kick returner.
Yeah, exactly. He's a guy that he's going to be a figure point on that special teams, whether if he's returning kicks or not, or returning punts or not, he can still be on the all phases of the special teams. So just because that athleticism, you can't teach that type of athleticism. He's a kid that's looks like he's willing and wanting to get out there and just contribute in any way he can. Probably realizes that he's not going to be able to start day one because of who's on that team and who's in front of him. But from a special team standpoint, he's gonna, he's explosive and he's very good in that regard. So he can at least get maybe a handful of punt returns this year, and maybe one of them breaks it to the house.
All right. And then as far as the rookie free agents, there were 5 that have draftable grades that are profiled in the R-Lads draft guide, and the R-Lads draft guide is right here. So if you want to order your R-Lads draft guide, you could still do it. No reason in the world. It's still not a good time to order it because you can go into the profiles. And again, between the 7 draft picks that the Cleveland Browns added to their team, you throw all those profiles are in the guide, as well as we have 5 rookie free agents that are in the guide as well with draftable grades, including the 2 that had the highest draftable grades were cornerback A.J. Green from Oklahoma State and quarterback Kevin Davidson from Princeton. Davidson had a 5th-round grade. Green had a 4th-round grade. Not bad to sign just those 2 players alone. Also, Benny LeMay, the running back from Charlotte, had a 1,000-yard season. Jamarcus Bradley was a big-time receiver in the Sun Belt. And Alex Taylor, an offensive tackle from South Carolina State. So out of those 5, who do you think maybe has the best chance to either make the team or be a priority on the practice squad?
I definitely think AJ Green has the best chance of making the team. They paid a lot of money for UDFA to join their team. I think it was like the most of any UDFA. It's not by any means an elite prospect, obviously, but you don't go undrafted for just for any reason. But he's a guy that was in the past 2 years in the Big 12 had an elite run defense grade. His coverage grade was an 82.0 over the past year, so he has the tools and the size. I think from an athleticism standpoint, he is lacking a bit there, but I think they obviously liked him, and so I think he's a guy that's going to probably make the team. Especially now with the expanded rosters they have, they can keep more guys this year than I can't remember if it's up to like 56 now or what exactly it is, but they definitely have more room for for the bottom end guys on the roster. Kevin Davidson, he is like you said, a Princeton guy. He traded out at an elite level at Princeton. We actually did do a lot of FCS schools this year, and Princeton was one of them. And at the competition level, he did what he was supposed to do against that competition level. Had a 91.5 passing grade, which is excellent. He doesn't have he's not an athletic quarterback, but he's got enough, and he's your kind of more of your prototypical drop back pocket passer. Has pretty good accuracy, and he threw a lot of big time throws and avoided negatively graded throws at Princeton, which is what you want to see from a guy like that. So he's a guy that could be good. Jamarcus Bradley, like you said, really good player at in Louisville, or not Louisville, but Louisiana, the Raging Cajun. So he graded out in almost an elite level there in college. So he's a guy I think can really, might make the team there. The others I think have a bit of a long shot to probably make the team. Like you said, Benny LeMay obviously had a good year, but he might get there and squeeze in on a practice squad. The tight end from Iowa, we all know how tight ends from Iowa can perform. He's not. So this Nate Wheating, I think Wheating is how you pronounce it. Not great grading profile, but he's got the size, and we know how Kevin Stefanski does love his tight end. So, obviously from a undrafted free agent standpoint, these guys have a long shot to make the team. But with the expanded rosters,
sure,
it's a little bit easier for them now.
And I'm completely shocked that the team signed a quarterback from the Ivy League. Completely shocked to see that happen with the Ivy League trio that is now running the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, it is shocking, right?
Yeah.
I did not see that one coming.
Yeah.
Even though we all should have pegged it, though.
Yep. That should have been.
Yeah, it. So you got the Ivy League trio now. He's not gonna threaten Baker Mayfield's job anytime soon. That's for sure. But I think that's a good developmental quarterback to have on your roster.
I agree. I think he is. And what is the quarterback depth chart after Mayfield?
You got Case Keenum.
Is there a number 3 that you really will make the team?
Garrett Gilbert is Garrett Gilbert starting the team? I'm pretty sure he is. So he was an AAF superstar, and
all right. Yeah, I'm not sure what that's going to do, but let's see. Garrett Gilbert. So you never know. I mean, look, if they keep 3 quarterbacks and they like Davidson might actually make it. I wouldn't be surprised. Gilbert, you kind of know what you got. Davidson's a guy you can work with, and I'm not sure they'd want to lose him because you put a quarterback on the practice squad that has a little bit of talent, and you might lose that guy.
Yeah, no, I mean you're right. I think we've seen Garrett Gilbert play in the AAF, and he did light it up there. I think they're safer to put if they wanted to keep all 4 of them. I think they would be safer to have Kevin Davidson on the practice squad because he obviously went undrafted for a reason. They wouldn't unless he lights it up in preseason and teams are like, oh, if they put this guy in the practice squad, we got to snatch
Sure,
him up.
sure.
But
Yeah.
I think I think that's it. There's a reason why he went undrafted, right? So like teams aren't really going to be unless they have really they have issues at quarterback. They're probably not going to be gunning for him unless he lights it up in the preseason. But he is an interesting prospect and just from his obviously Princeton, Ivy School, smart guy, and maybe could be a long-term prospect. And I'm of the opinion that the more quarterbacks you have, the better.
Absolutely.
You just never know, and what teams will be coming and calling for them because of how important the position is. Especially now, like we've talked about, like the expanded rosters.
Yeah.
Maybe you keep four on your active roster.
You never know.
And have them on your just keep them on that so you can keep them away from the practice squad. Who knows?
Sure, possible. That's going to be interesting, and that's where we'll talk again because once we find out what the training camp schedules are going to be like, and we're all really excited about some of the news that's come out the last couple of days because it kind of appears that we're getting close to some sort of official date, and I know it's all about making sure that everybody is going to start on time at the same time. So it may take a little while to get official, a little bit more time to get official, but I think we're getting close. And once that happens and we get a date, then we know we'll talk again and preview the season for the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, sounds. Yeah, I think we're. I think football is going to be here in some capacity in the fall, and we'll be back to normalcy soon. Hopefully soon. I don't know when.
And by the way, just so you know, there will be fans. Just so you know.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I'm telling you right now, people, sports fans, I don't think they're grasping the difference with no fans. I just don't think I think they're so desperate for sports that they're just give me sports. But I'm telling you, as soon as they put that TV on and there's no fans and they watch these athletes run around with no fans, they're going to be like, well, this is weird. This isn't really, I'm not sure I like this as much. And I think the athletes are going to feel the same way. Yeah. So I do not. Go ahead.
So imagine throwing a 60-yard bomb and it's the silence.
Yeah. I don't think.
Feel weird.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I don't think it's going to happen. Especially with a lot of the more positive news that's been coming out recently. We're not even into June yet, and every week that goes by, we're getting more and more positive news and more indication that look, nobody's saying you have to go out there if you have 70,000 seats and fill 70,000 seats. Nobody's saying you have to do that week one, but you can't tell me that you can't put 35,000 or 40,000 week one, maybe week two or week three, you put a little bit more and so forth and so on. But I'm telling you, there's no way there will be no fans. No way. So.
Yeah. You're probably right.
All right. Well, let's hope so. All right. John, appreciate it. We'll also definitely talk more about Pro Football Focus as we get towards the season because we know we want to talk a lot about what's going on there. Of course, Pro Football Focus. Tell us a little bit more before we let you go on, besides the Browns, how you enjoy interpreting what you have to interpret to make Pro Football Focus and their numbers equate to the football field.
Yeah, so you can obviously go to pff.com and check out what PFF has to offer. We have an elite and an ed subscription that gets you certain levels of access to our grades and data. And what I do is I grade players on a plus minus scale and chart a lot of other different things for the company to put all this, to get this into a package that's obviously usable for the user. With those subscriptions, you get the draft guide, you get a QB annual that we put out every single year, which goes into huge detail about every quarterback and the specific types of throws that they're making and their type of accuracy, what the reads, the progressions that they go through, if they're throwing a rhythm and whatnot. So lots of good data that I could go on for hours about to go into detail about, but go over there, check it out, and you just become a smarter football fan essentially when you can read that. Even if even if you only get the Edge subscription, which is the cheaper subscription, you still get a lot of really good data, which includes the
Absolutely.
draft guide. So
Yep. Everybody's looking for an edge, whether it's a
that's right.
fan, gambler, fantasy, and that's exactly what you can do if you subscribe at any level to Pro Football Focus. You can get an edge. So I have a subscription, and I've been a loyal member and follower for years. So John, I appreciate it. We look forward to talking to you again real soon.
Yeah, my pleasure, Greg. It's always a good time.